Here we go. Hi, folks. You are watching and listening to Sipping Off the Cuff on Tequila Aficionado Media on all of our channels and networks. I'm Mike Morales here in sunny Southern California. That gentleman out there is.
Eric Zandona in Florida's Emerald Coast.
Eric and I had a long dissertation off camera about additives and agave spirits and other markets, and we'll discuss that in some other time. But in the meantime, here's something that I have been, well, I could have said I was hoarding it, but I wasn't. I actually dove into it, but it's this is an agave spirit from Peru, and Eric and I have had the first iterations of these
Yes.
prior to them coming to the United States. And
Hmm.
the brand owner and the person made this happen is Marco Suarez, who's been
Yeah.
very nice, very generous.
Yes.
Since the first time that you and I had their first run of these,
Hmm.
he's entered them in several contests. I think they've actually won some medals for being.
Yep.
Uh, I have. There are wonderful things to be said about this agave spirit. It is from the this one's a little bit different though. This one is a new version, Eric. It's called
Yes.
Rita. What
Yes.
exactly makes it different than the ones that we had? Is it a different plant or different region?
I think what the differentiation I believe is in the cooking of the agaves.
Okay,
So so I think with this one, the Rita, it is borrowing the like earthen pit method of cooking that you see popular in Oaxaca and other parts of Mexico for mezcal. And
okay,
so I think that they were really kind of borrowing that because the other iterations of Aqara are very there's no smoke. They're very clean. They're
yes,
nice tasting agave spirits. And but for this one, they wanted to kind of see what it would be like to distill their agaves in or cook their agaves in that kind of mezcal style
right.
tradition. And so this is what we get.
Well, the plant is very flavorful. It is an agave
Hmm.
plant, but it is its own genus. I think is how the word I'm looking.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if it's
Well, they
on the
call it
label.
these are called caras, well, caras Peru, but it is in the it's these are agaves that are wild harvested in the Andes, uh,
Hmm.
and also distilled at a much higher elevation. So
Yeah,
it's almost like distilling in Denver, but even higher than that. So
yeah,
Aqara is born in the Peruvian Andes in Caray. I hope I'm pronouncing all that stuff because I don't speak that language. That's not Spanish.
yeah.
Which is the Inca's language, means places of agave. Find in this bottle the essence of the ancient plant. So it is their agave, and it's not blue agave. And
No.
we loved the first iteration.
Yeah, they were very nice.
The plants do their own. I mean, the character is just some of the finest character. I have heard that outside of Venezuela, which makes a cucuy, which I've never
Hmm.
been able to get, but I hear cucuy is like the best agave spirit in the world. Have you ever had it, Eric?
I've had it. Yeah, there's a Venezuelan guy that lives in Chicago, and he
Are
has some
you kidding
bottles.
me?
Yeah, yeah. And so
Is he
if you
importing
ever
it or what? I mean,
no, no, they're his own personal.
oh, it's his own personal reserve. Okay.
Yeah. So if you ever go to the Indie Spirits Expo in Chicago, which is a fun event,
Right.
he's usually there pouring stuff for like
Well,
oh
the Indie Spirits event, that's the one that the gentleman from Glencairn promotes a lot.
yeah,
Marty
yeah. So the
Duffy?
main, yeah. So he's involved. Dave Schmier is the primary like organizer for those
Okay.
events, and I'm trying to remember the anyway. He reps some mezcal brands and some tequila brands, but so anyway, I told him I was coming. I was like, "Can you bring some kukui?" And he was like, "Oh yeah."
Uh,
So
so
I got to
so
try it. It
so
was excellent. It was excellent. But it was very much in line with mezcal. So the plants are much smaller in general, but they're also like earthen, ovens
right.
and kind of pot still distillation. So it's in that vein of mezcal for sure.
Yeah, so as you can see, this is I've been through a lot of this, but I managed to
I
save
held
the
on to
last of
mine
it. Yeah,
full.
he actually has two full bottles, which
Yeah,
I'm surprised. I don't know how he well, considering your palate, I'm sure there's you have plenty to choose from.
yeah.
But it's been
You can see
2023
it
was a tough
was,
year, folks.
yeah.
Anyway, we're gonna pour this. I'm gonna pour it in a Stasso Jarrito, and look at just I don't know if you can see that on my camera, but look at the bubbles
Oh
in it.
yeah.
I mean, this just it's about as pure as you can get. I mean, that stuff is just I can't say enough about it. Oh yeah, hello. I'm gonna use pour mine in my Stasso Jarrito that
Hmm.
we use for higher proofs. I also use it for higher proof tequilas also. And yeah, it was all I could do to not hide it from me, but I should have. But anyway, um, now this is coming in at let me check the proof on that. What's the proof on
It's
it?
47.
47. Okay, so
Yeah.
again, more in line with some of the better destilados and mezcals that we've had that Eric and I've enjoyed, except for that
Hmm.
one barbecue one that I'm going to save for him. The venison
Yeah.
pechuga. Oh my God. And I can tell you that all the time I've had it, I never poured it in one of these to just dissect.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
this is my like my first real dissection. Yeah, it's really bright. I'm surprised how bright it is.
The first thing that I'm getting is like ripe mango.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like ripe mango. Like it's
It's
super soft,
very fruit
delicious.
forward. Yes.
Yeah. It smells fantastic.
And you know what? Despite the fact that it's at a higher ABV, very minimal alcohol coming
Oh
through.
yeah. Yeah.
It's
There's like no burn from the alcohol.
no.
And even though it's cooked in the earthen pit and they talk about the smoke character, like on the nose, I'm not getting it. Maybe it's going to show
No.
up in the palate.
Uh
Um,
looking
but
at the legs and tears, it's pristine. It
yeah,
is beautiful to look at.
yeah,
And I'm trying to see if I can show you legs and tears on my glass,
yeah,
but yeah, it's generally what you would get. Oh, there you go.
yeah.
Yeah, a little thicker legs and tears, which I expected. I
A
expected
little
because
bit of like a salt and pepper kind of thing going on. There's like
you mean more like
it's
green
really
pepper or salt and pepper?
no like black pepper. It kind
Oh,
of just
okay.
reminds me of there's like almost a little bit of a saline kind of sea
Oh, okay.
air thing, but then there's a little bit of pepper there too, and so. But I'm excited to taste it.
Yeah, well, let's go. I know it's been a while since I've had any, so here we
Yeah,
go. We're gonna just
there we go.
dive in. Mm,
Mm,
mm, mm,
mm, mm.
mm, mm.
So I can say off the bat, there's this interesting flavor. It's fruity, a little bit hard to kind of pinpoint what it is. Um,
I
it's
like to call it gamey. It's
okay.
gamier,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
maybe more earthier than I expected, but it's a nice combination of sweet and then mid palate that earth or whatever that I know what you're talking.
Yeah. There's this distinct, like sweet, earthy character. And I don't know exactly how to, but that flavor is distinctive to this agave. So the other iterations of Aqara have this similar flavor.
Yeah,
So that's definitely coming through. And then there's a little bit of like a wood smoke, maybe. It's
yeah,
very light. It's very light though. Um, there's definitely some fruitiness. It's got a little bit of like a saltiness or acidity to it that like it's making my mouth water a little bit, which is
not a
like
bad
I want
thing.
to drink some more.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
Yeah.
as you can see, I attacked that bottle, so I know that feeling
So,
firsthand.
yeah.
I will tell you though, and I don't know if it's generally is this, and you've had a whole lot more, probably a whole lot more of the gamey versions of agave than I have
Mhm.
had. I'm telling you, Kukui is on my radar. It's been on my radar for 5 years or more,
Yeah.
and I'm going to get it. I just don't know how. But um, but for would you say that there's this one is it's almost you said the plant's smaller than the ones that
Well,
we're used
these
to
one,
seeing.
yeah, the ones in Venezuela are smaller, but these ones I don't know. I think
Yeah,
these
these
might be
look
bigger.
bigger. These look huge.
Yeah.
They almost look like the pulque ones that they scoop out in the center.
Yeah, they in terms of their size, I don't think they're related to Salmianas, but they're kind of that they look to be in that kind
Yeah,
of
they look
size.
like
Maybe
salmianas.
it's in the like Americana, which can get pretty big. It might be a
I
variation
you
of
know,
that.
and
I
I
can't
and
remember.
I know I've looked up the genus, the Latin names for it, and you're
Hmm.
right. I think they're related to Salmiana or Americana. I think they're within that frame. The problem is or the best part is it grows up at a higher altitude. So any plant
Yeah.
like sotol, for instance, when it grows at a higher altitude or it doesn't have the earth, the earth that it's brothers who are on a level plane are growing in it, the flavor profile will be more intense because it has to fight to survive to hang on to the nutrients. And
Hmm.
like in California, for instance, the sotol, if you drive anywhere near Santa Barbara, you'll see them up on the hillsides, and they're used for ground cover because
Yeah.
especially during the rainy season, you don't want, you want the hillsides to not come down on the freeway. And so they grow stuff like sotol, and so those sotols don't look like what you see in El Paso maybe because
Right.
they're more stressed out. And the more stressed out the plant is, the smaller they tend to get, but the more
Hmm.
flavorful they are though, right, Eric?
Yeah. Yeah. So generally, it's accepted. This is very common in the wine world, where they what they talk about is the when a plant is under stress, it produces all sorts of other like chemicals to kind of preserve itself
Right.
and to fend off predators and to hold on to the water more and all sorts of other things. And so all of those additional compounds that get created due to that stress end up creating flavor in the fermentation.
Oh,
And
okay.
so in the wine world, they all like fine wine, they always talk about, dry farming and like stressing the vines to really get them to search for nutrients in the soil so that they're producing the most flavorful berries that they can. And so it's also true that when you have stressed agaves, um, that they produce these similar kind of compounds that create more protective layers and help them survive.
Right.
And that contributes to flavor in the distillate when you finally
And
make
I
it.
have heard that. I just recently,
Yeah.
as a matter of fact, I don't read too much about wine. I mean, most of the stuff that I read are in my alerts from I belong to a lot of newsletters and stuff, and I will
Yeah.
get stuff on wine
Yeah.
that will, even like wine enthusiasts. It's always good to read up on what the wine world is doing, because that's where the agave world has just borrowed benefits from the wine world,
Hmm.
because that particular culture has defined, terroir. I mean, we borrow
Yeah.
the word terroir because it's French.
Right.
There's a word for it in Spanish, but nobody knew what that meant until they started using the French word. Oh, I get it now.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
sommelier. You know, there's no word for that in Spanish. The closest thing is catador, and then mezcalier. That's not even a word. So I don't know, but
Right.
I have heard that when a plant is stressed out in general, especially wine grapes. Like for instance, you and I haven't talked since I came back from Israel, I think.
Yeah.
And they grow the stuff that we learned on the in the Negev desert, where they're growing wine grapes. It's the same thing. The flavor profiles are so completely different from the wineries up near Jerusalem, which is
Right.
north. I
Yeah.
gotta tell you, Eric, I sat in a winery. Right now, the name escapes me, but it'll come to me. It's all in Hebrew, so I got. I'm
Right.
Spanish. I'm still trying to learn Hebrew, but we're sitting there, and the atmosphere, the weather. I may as well have been in Napa. That you could feel the
Hmm.
breeze coming in. It was a
Right.
whole different. the microclimate was so different than
Right.
what we experienced in the Negev Desert, which is,
Right.
hot and dry and arid. But,
Right.
the wines, you're right, night and day. The whole, so it makes sense that a plant like agave would, especially agave, and it's stressed in a couple of ways. Number one, it's in
Hmm.
Andes. Number two, it's at a higher altitude. Uh,
Yeah.
so it would figure that the flavor profiles of any of the plants would be different.
So actually, if this is a great like uh
Segue?
thing. So I just listened to a podcast this morning on my walk
No.
where with Ivan Saldana, and he was
Oh,
talking
yes.
specifically about this
By
and
the way,
how
For those of you not knowing, Ivan Saldana is the guy who invented Montelobos. I
yeah,
interviewed him briefly when he was out here when I was living in San Antonio. I interviewed him briefly when he was still with Montelobos. He has since sold that brand, and the man's a mad genius, though. He's working for
yeah,
Noche Luna now. He's doing the Sotol
yeah.
and other
So
things.
he's a scientist and he loves agaves and he loves the environment of Mexico and he's very conscious about how the agriculture is impacting it. He was also involved with the Abasolo Mexican corn whiskey,
Yes, yes,
and I talked to him briefly about that project he did. But anyway, he talked about how for agaves that get more sunlight, they tend to develop more of a waxy protectorant on
yes,
the
yes.
on the
On the
pencas.
leaves. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And so what happens when you go in higher elevations? You get a lot more UV rays. So in corn, corn is fascinating. When you go to the Andes and you're closer to the equator and higher in elevation, corn stalks develop a purple color. It's like it's like pigment. It's like natural sun protection for the corn
Oh,
stalk.
oh, so it's yeah. Okay, so it's like
It's like
sunscreen.
melanin,
It's like sun.
basically.
Yeah, yeah, like sunscreen or
Yeah.
melon. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And so the closer you get to the equator and the higher in elevation you get, like the more purple the stalks get for corn because of the increase in UV rays. And so because the plant's trying to protect itself.
Right.
And so I can only imagine what the agaves are doing at that high elevation, closer to the equator, much more UV rays. So they're going to develop a lot more of these like protectorants for UV reasons. And so that's going to translate
But
into the
also for the
flavor.
cold, it also gets
Yeah,
cold
yeah,
there. I mean,
yeah,
the Andes get snow. I mean,
yeah,
Peru, Ecuador, wherever the Andes run. I think that this particular line comes from, if I'm not mistaken, I'm gonna mangle this name, the Cordillera del Negro, I think, or Negro Cordillera, which is the
yeah,
it's kind of like a part of the mountain range of the Andes, but it's
right.
Negro. It's the black part of it. I
Yeah,
guess they call it black. And Negra Cordillera, Negro Cordillero, something like that. I'll have
yeah,
to look at my Spanish. Um, so it comes from a really rugged. It's kind of like uh, the a lot of people. I'll relate it to the Rockies. The Rockies in
yeah.
Colorado are a little bit different than the foot of the Rocky Mountains in New Mexico, in
Hmm.
Albuquerque. They're
Yeah,
not as spiky and intense. It does get some snow, but it's the dusting of snow. Even though Albuquerque is a mile high, the mountain range is doesn't get as you come down northern New Mexico, it goes down from Taos to Santa Fe to New Mexico to Albuquerque, and the foot of the Rocky Mountains are called the Sandias. So this mountain range is it's almost as if the agaves were growing at the top of the Rocky Mountains. I mean,
yeah,
it's that
yeah,
rough, right? It's like
yeah,
Pikes Peak. It's like you had agaves in Pikes Peak or something crazy like that. So
yeah,
I can only, you're right. I can only imagine because you're not only dealing with the sunlight, but then in the wintertime, you're dealing with snow. It gets cold
yeah,
up there.
yeah.
So, so that all that, I guess, and the water that they're using, I don't know what kind of water they're using, but
I
I'm
mean,
sure.
most of the water is probably glacier water from that
Yeah,
area.
we've had some that was from New Zealand. Man, that was ethereal. that
Yeah.
it's underground glacier rivers. That's where the
Hmm.
this particular distillery was
Yeah.
drawing water from that is underground rivers from glaciers.
Yeah.
But is there anything else we want to say about this thing? Because I think it's amazing.
I think it's really, really lovely. I would say that despite its like higher ABV, you don't really feel it.
No.
And to me, there's a really nice, kind of lovely, subtle, like to me, this reminds me of some like really nice red wines that I've had where it's like not too high ABV, not sweet. They're just like really good food wines. So it
Yeah.
reminds me of that. So like this, I could see really working well when you're eating. Like I said, it had this kind of salty, almost like acidic thing that made me want to drink more. So I could see this pairing really well with, Peruvian food per se,
Oh yeah.
or Mexican food or
Well,
something
a nice
else.
charcuterie, like dried
Yeah,
meats and stuff
yeah.
like that, or
Yeah,
nuts.
some cheeses. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So it's really lovely. And even though like it talks about smoke on the label, like don't be shy about this. Like it's very mild
Yes.
and it's lovely. It's got this really nice fruit aroma, and then on the palate, there's a lot of complexity there, but it's just really kind of light and lovely.
You know what I noticed too, Eric, on my second pass? I've only had two passes. On my
Yeah.
second pass, while you were talking earlier, I noticed there was a little sweetness on the nose that I didn't detect at the beginning. And then on the finish, and I'm not spitting this one out,
Yeah.
on the finish, because I may never get another bottle, on the finish, I noticed that there was a little bit of and I don't know if this is a residue of what we couldn't place at the very beginning when you and I were talking about
Hmm.
this.
Yeah.
There was like a fennel or a licorice aftertaste
Okay.
at the very end of my palate, though. I mean, it almost once I swallowed it, it came up on the retronasal and then disappeared. But it
Hmm.
really very much fennel or licorice. I don't want to
Yeah, yeah.
call it anise because it wasn't that sweet.
No.
It was
Fennel. Yeah, definitely like
fennel.
fennel root.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I don't know if that's residual from what was in the mid palate, but it's really pretty. It's really nice.
Yeah.
It sure beats tobacco and smoke, man. I gotta tell you.
Yeah.
Mm. Brand of Promise nominee, folks. This
Definitely.
whole
Definitely.
new category. And you're right. Now, this is my third pass. Now it's kind of salty.
Hmm.
And yeah, it evolves in your glass. I didn't
Yeah.
get all of that at the beginning, but as we let it sit and open up and bloom, you get
Yeah.
all it starts to talk to you. It really reveals itself as
Hmm.
for his for his bold. Well, it's not even that bold, man. It's very elegant. I mean,
Yeah.
you would think
Yeah.
in the Peruvian Andes, you're thinking, yeah, you need a Sherpa to get up there, right? Or something. But it's a very elegant. It reminds me a lot of some of the Raicias I've had that
Hmm.
you look at the master distillers and they look like, they look like moonshiners. And then you start
Right.
you drinking their stuff and it's like, this is really refined stuff.
Yeah. And
Um,
to me, this is like one of the captivating things about agave spirits, right? There's such a wide range. You can have everything from the like super intense, like big, bold, smoky mezcals. You can have the kind of like, traditional tequilas. And then you have something like this where it's just like you said, refined and elegant and just really just something delightful to drink. And like I said, I'm convinced I got to try this with some food. I think it's
okay.
going to work really
Well, there
well.
you go. If you come up with a recipe, write it up, send it to
Yeah,
us. We'll give
yeah,
you credit for it, Eric.
yeah.
But that's our take. What do we have a price point on this? Because I know Marcos Juarez made this available. It's probably available in New York. I'm pretty sure. I think
Yeah, I'm pretty. Let me see
and
here.
probably Old Town Tequila may have these. It's really well worth it if you're an agave nerd, and maybe some of the mezcals, some of the plants are not to your liking. This will fill that gap for you. It really will.
Yeah, Old Town Tequila has it in, it looks like it's maybe in the $60 range.
Really?
Yeah, let
Wow,
me
that beats
see.
that other tequila we tasted earlier, that pseudo
Yeah.
tequila.
Oh,
Wow.
it doesn't look like they have the Rita. They have the other expressions of Aqara.
But you know what?
With
That's a great starting point. Great jumping off
yeah,
point for you know, and even this is supposed to be gamier. It doesn't lose its finesse. Uh,
yeah,
even at a more traditional mezcal like, you know, cooking of the agaves, I'm impressed as hell. I'm so glad I hung on to what was left of it
yeah,
because
yeah.
it was amazing to begin with. What I don't remember, and it's been a while since I've had any, whether it gives you the munchies, because agave spirits, they open up your appetite and you get hungry in the middle of the night, and that's not great
Hmm.
for the diet. Uh,
Yeah,
so, you know.
yeah.
But anyway, that's our take. Brand, a promise on Aqara. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly because I have to find where the accent is. Aqara, and it's a agave de los Andes. It's the Rita. Rita is
Hmm.
this iteration of the original line. Just delightful. If you find it,
Yeah,
go for it. You could put it in a cocktail. I personally would like probably. I'd make a martini out of this. I don't know. You know, somewhere I see it
yeah,
people do with a martini, and I think I
yeah,
think
yeah,
I think it's a little olive juice or something on there. I don't know. I'd have
yeah,
to let you play with it because you're
yeah.
the
I'll do that.
you and Alex and Jim are all my cocktail guys. Oh, and Jay, you guys are all cocktail guys. I bet if I gave a bottle to each of you, you'd come up with something different every time.
Yeah, I think as you said, like a martini, I think would work really well. Dry vermouth, maybe like a dash of orange bitters. I think this would really like sing in
Oh
something
my
like that.
God. See,
So,
and I'm
yeah.
not a cocktail guy, but I'm telling you,
Yeah.
I'd have a cocktail.
I think traditional like tequila drinks, like anything that's got like citrus juice is going to be kind of too intense for it. But yeah, yeah, I think martini sounds fantastic. I'll have to try that
Well, it's,
and
you know, because
report
it's
back.
got a dry finish too, so it's like
Yeah,
perfect for your martini, but it's not
yeah,
like Bombay Sapphire dry or anything like that.
yeah.
That's just that dries up as you pour it in your glass. It just evaporates. But anyway, that's our take, folks, on Acara, that spirit of the Andes. If you've had it, tell us what you're doing with it. What are
Hmm.
you doing? Are you sipping it? Are you putting it in a cocktail? I mean, whatever. Tell us what you're doing with it. Leave us a comment. Give us a like if you're watching us on YouTube, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell, and whatever you do, folks, tomar sabiamente.
Sip wisely.
There we go. Look. I love it. I love it.